Some libraries contain amazing treasures, ancient and valuable illustrated books from across the globe. Not something that most school children get the chance to see, let alone work on. But here in Yorkshire, the British Library has teamed up with 3 local primary schools to help them access these books and benefit from the experience. Inside Story is a trial project which has involved library staff working with schools to develop storytelling and produce work for a touring installation.
Inside Story is really about what it says. It's about getting inside a story. We were looking at really 3 major texts. One is the Ramayana, one is the Shahnameh, and one is the Golden Haggadah.
The 3 books were selected from the British Library's collection of 150 million items. Each are unique masterpieces which bring to life epic and culturally important stories.
What we really aim to do is to get children and schools looking at those and then actually thinking about how they could use that material.
Each of the schools, one in Rotherham, one in York and one in Leeds, were allocated a book to study after liaison with the teaching staff involved. We're going to focus on Hillcrest Primary, the Leeds school, who worked on the story of the Ramayana, an ancient Sanskrit poem which tells the dramatic story of the exile of King Rama and his wife Sita.
The Inside Story project came on board with the school because we were concerned about the standards of writing in the school generally, and we were thinking of different ideas of how we could be enhancing the standards of writing. We've got a multi-ethnic population in the school. In fact, probably about 98% of our children are from multi-ethnic origin. So we wanted to link something with writing that would encompass everybody's thinking and something different for the school to take on board.
At the start of the project, a professional storyteller went to school to introduce the Ramayana to the children. Pupils then accessed the story through reproductions and the British Library website.
What we wanted to do was go with how the schools wanted to explore their practice. So we did work with the management in all of the schools, and we worked with each of the class teachers. So for instance, in Leeds, we often went on a Friday afternoon and it became quite a regular thing, whereas in Rotherham we had times when we were in there a lot and then 2 or 3 weeks when we weren't. So each one was different.
To help teachers get to grips with each story, the British Library ran a series of inspiration days which brought together staff from all 3 schools, allowing them to become familiar with the stories and plan schemes of work.
We wanted really the teachers and actually the librarians as well to really feel that they became part of these stories. So we did a lot of workshops and exercises so that afterwards people felt that, oh yes, I can go and have a look on the website or I can go and read about this. They are great tales and there's no reason to be frightened of them. They are very big and very complex in some ways, but then I think all stories are.
I think there's an enormous value in a multicultural, ethnically diverse society in exploring a whole range of different texts which can help children to understand the stories of different cultures and the different cultures that they're seeing within their own classroom. You
can do this with any sort of story. You could do Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast or whatever it is, but the joy of this sort of work is that you can take something, and I think this is really important, that you're not familiar with. This is where the British Library does have some fantastic resources. That could be replicated by using digitised images of any text that you could take from the internet, but it could also be replicated by going down to your local library and choosing a book or a story and using exactly the same techniques with the children in your own classroom. And what you might be able to do by going to your local library is find stories and images that are of particular relevance to your children in your local school. You could go into their collections and choose anything and do the same sort of work. It's just a matter of getting a hook and then letting your imagination go free.
The hook, in the case of the Ramayana, was the character of Hanuman, a monkey god with extraordinary magic powers.
It's been a new kind of way of starting off the stimulus for writing. Rather than the standard, discussing about the starting of a story and the middle part of a story, we've actually encompassed design technology. We've actually made the monkeys to start with, so the children have something to handle, to look at, and then to use that as the stimulus.
You had to get a sock and you had to make some ears, eyes and nose and stuff with, but you had to get a big button for its nose and 2 small ones for its eyes.
One of the things that we did in the early part of the project was to have a think about how we could engage the children with telling a story themselves. A lot of them are quite shy about articulating something in front of a lot of others. So this became a way for the monkey to become something that would take on their story. And these I think are very precious still to the children. What happened was that the Hanuman figures started to touch their own sort of ideas about what if they had a Hanuman in their own lives, what would happen to them.
My Hanuman was the one where my Hanuman fell out of my window. And it was a nice sunny day. Then one day, because I didn't see my Hanuman because my sister put my Hanuman there. When I opened the window, my Hanuman fell off. It just fell.
That he was going shop and everybody hated him, so he got beaten up. When he came home, he called his friends and he took revenge. Then he became the king of monkeys.
The British Libraries were very good in bringing in resources and bringing other professionals who showed us different things of ideas we could do.
And what the animator did is he took
Mark Hildred is a designer who has incorporated children's work from the 3 schools into the final touring installation.
You come in with your own ideas, but then the children embrace something totally different and run off with it. And we've had to sit down and say, right, we've got this monkey, there's got to be something monkey-based within the installation. How do we follow that? So we explored various ideas, and the one that came up was actually taking their monkeys and actually turning them into animations so that we could actually see some of the adventures that the Hanuman had and actually focus on some of the exciting sections of the story that the children kept coming back to us about, when Hanuman does amazing things like leaping across to Lanka or lifting up a mountain or shrinking down as small as a mouse.
The idea is that you take one of the animations and that you say what you think that story is about.
Hanuman's adventures have allowed Jim Crenell to develop a new way of introducing story writing to the class.
The children's perception of writing has been quite difficult because we have a large range of abilities within the classroom, and a lot of children find writing difficult. So the actual project encompassed drawing first, thinking of the story, putting it into pictures, and then rather than saying to children, as we sometimes do then, to write about those pictures, we use the idea of just very simple post-it notes for each picture. Putting the post-its on the various parts of the story to describe what each little scene shows. Later on, in our other writing sessions, they'll be using these post-its and putting these at the top of the page, like this, which actually shows all the scenes that they have on their picture. And then in our writing sessions, we're going to expand each of these little post-its on a storyboard idea, with the idea that this was Hanuman's tail getting longer and longer, and so their little story parts get longer and longer.
Just writing little details
about the sounds and what he's doing and what he might be saying.
And that in the end he finds Princess Sita.
In the end, from some of the children in that class saying, oh, well, we can't tell a story, they had all made their stories, and from each point they'd extended really 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So at the end of it all, they'd made a story.
You know, it could be music going from higher to lower.
We found this was a good way to do our writing because a lot of the children thought they were only just writing little sections, but they got so engaged in writing about the actual story that they could expand this and could have gone on more and more. So that was our final product, to make some creative writing in a different kind of way rather than just in an exercise book, but they can be proud of it to show anybody.
As well as writing, the project has developed the pupils' oral story skills using a special storytelling chair.
Like In the school we took an ordinary chair and it really became something that they weren't nervous about it because it was a special chair, and the chair took some of the fear away, if you like. Do you feel that you could tell us a bit about the animation, about the story you've just made? Yeah. Yes, you do?
Ah!
Has it got any words?
Yahoo! I can do this! Yay! Goodbye.
I think that they really got into the idea that they could make their own story, that they could take this idea and make it up as they go along.
What a tumble.
One of the great things about libraries today is that they don't just have books as resources, they also have story tapes, just as they have access to the internet and CDs. So it's a very rich resource for a teacher who can use it to get different voices into the classroom and get children listening to stories as well as telling stories themselves as well as reading stories.
The completed installation began its tour at Rotherham Central Library. Joining the Hanuman animations are a Seder meal scene from the Golden Haggadah and an interactive version of the Shamane. Pupils from Ferrum Primary School in Rotherham studied the Shamane and are the first to see their work on display.
What we're trying to do is put together something that isn't just a load of boring posters and static objects. It's actually about the children coming in and doing things within the installation. And each of the 3 stories has separate bits that we've developed. With the stories from Rotherham, we've got the Shahnameh, which is the Persian epic of the kings. And there we've actually created a large turning page book where the children can actually turn the pages, see images that we've montaged from work that they've done. And as they turn the pages, the lights and the sounds will reflect the lighting and sound that they identified would be in those particular parts of the story.
Callum again.
Callum, you're inside the story. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's wicked.
It's wicked.
The children's interpretations of the stories will tour libraries across Yorkshire, giving students the double satisfaction of seeing their own work on public display while allowing others a hands-on chance to use it. The project doesn't end here, though. All 3 schools are keen to continue working with the British Library, building on their experiences so far to develop future activities.
Strong again until he stood high above the garden.
The most enjoyable part for me has been to see the children really engaged in what they've been doing, because writing is not really always the most exciting thing to be doing, and children sometimes are very easy to switch off. But we've not seen that. We've seen all abilities taking part in the project and really enjoying it and all giving their 100%.